Hey guys, it's Brad at Eastcoastangel. I'm just going to do a teardown today of the Angel Arc. Kyle on Facebook sent this in, which is really cool of him. You know, that way I could have this. I made a video a little while ago of the Arc, but managed to delete it before I had uploaded it. So, you know, here it is again. You know, I like to try to give everybody a complete walkthrough. You know, the way I tear down guns. You know, you may do them a little bit differently, but this is the way I do it, and it seems to have been working for, you know, quite some time. The very first thing I do, I take off the passenger side grip frame panel, and allows access to the eyes, to the solenoid, plug, battery. You don't have to take out the battery if you don't want to. Most of the time it's not necessary, just you know, unless it's dead, of course. Alright, and as you can see right there, you've got your wires, your eye wires. You want to be kind of careful with that, just because of the fact that they, you know, the ribbon wires tend to be a little brittle, a little bit more fragile. If you get the chance, you get the opportunity, always hit up Doc Strangelove, either on PBN or on eBay, and get a set of his laser eyes. They're phenomenal. They last long, you know, a lot longer than most other laser eyes, you know, including the stock, you know, laser eyes. His are, you know, particular because they're wired. The connections are a lot stronger, and they just have, you know, a bit more durability to them. And like I said, you know, great service, great price. You can't go wrong. It's what I'm using now in my Dark G7 Fly. It did have a set of regular stock eyes, and I pulled them out and, you know, put the Doc's laser eyes in there. So anyway, now that we've got the all of the connections unplugged, one thing I did notice is the gun's got some paint on the inside of the frame. So this gun will get a full teardown anyway, because he did tell me that it was a bit dirty. And you know, I can already tell that there's you know, there's going to be some issues with the gun. Mainly when I look into the open slot on this particular model, I can see that I'm not seeing a valve stem protruding out a little bit for the ram to be able to hit. So therefore, that I know there's going to be some sort of issue in the front of the gun. Probably a magnet's been removed. You know, it's going to need to be re-glued in. It's not a big deal. You know, it's typical, especially with the A1 platform, where parts become unglued with the factory adhesive. I mean, these guns are, you know, 7-8 years old. There's nothing that you're going to be able to do about that. Now, the next thing I do after I take the panel off and unplug the grips is I take out the macro line. Sometimes, you know, it can be a little bit stubborn. If for some reason or another it's being stubborn and you don't want to cut the macro line to be able to get everything off, you can remove the mini rag just like that first. Gives you a little bit of leeway. Then you should be able to take the macro line out. Again, it's being stubborn. Something tells me that this gun's probably going to give me a little bit of a headache. Anyway, I can tell. It's got a lot of grit, a lot of grime. The set screws for the ASA weren't. You can see they're flush. That's not holding the ASA on at all. You can damage your rail that way and whatnot. But I mean, he sent it in for a reason. You know, he wants it gone through. You know, and completely. You know, just made sure that, you know, everything's working properly, everything's set up properly. You know, by the time I have this gun back to him, he's just going to be amazed. So there's that. Again, you know, because I'm having an issue with the, you know, with the macro line, sometimes you can get it. Sometimes you can get it out, just by pushing down on the thing. Sometimes the stuff is just so, dug right in that you're going to have to replace it, which is what I'll be doing today. I'll be replacing this line, so I'll be flattening that line, with a pair of pliers and just pulling it out. But for now, in order to be able to get to the reg's internals, I just take the the bottom end cap off of the reg itself. Now, the one thing that you're going to notice when you do that, you now have your reg, about halfway unassembled. The one thing here too that I like to point out is on the SB platform in the fly, A1 flies and the arcs, the bottom cap is has cuts in it that you can use. You could use a towel, the edge of the towel. You can put it in there. Then you can use a pair of pliers, and grab onto that, and that will allow you to unscrew the macro line from the inside. There's a hex key that'll fit right on the inside. You can see in there, and that'll fit in there. And then you can again clamp this. I would use, I'd cover it in like towel or something of that nature so you don't scuff it up, and then you can twist off that the macro line. And one thing I am noticing is oil. There's a lot of it on the surfaces of stuff, which, that to me, if you need to start putting a lot of oil to your gun, then you need to take it apart and you need to find out why. Most of the time it's just a simple leak, but sometimes it can be something a little bit more major. It could be the ram, starting to go out. The oils, you add oil to something. I mean, typically it's going to mask the leak, or the issue, which you don't want to do this. With these guns, you want to be able to get right down to what's causing the problem, because these things shoot phenomenal. I've got a video of one of these that I teched last week, and the thing absolutely just blew my mind at how well it shot. When I brought it to the field, it was a customer gun, and it just shot great. But I mean, you have to put in a little bit in order to do that. A little bit of time working on these. Use this video as a reference. To see. Okay, well, how do I take that apart, or how do I not damage that when I take it apart? The one thing that I like doing is I like to take everything down to the bare bones when I'm breaking down a gun. That includes the regs, that includes all the other little bits and pieces. I like to clean everything thoroughly. Most of the time stuff gets a bath. It's just it's just smart to start from an absolute even platform, whereas you're not trying to chase down, well, it could be this, it could be that, it could be this, it could be that. By the time you take, say, the LPR out of this, you might as well have already taken apart the whole gun, just because it's so intensive. It's the the back cap, it's the frame, and at that point you're literally only missing the ASA and the reg that would need to come off, and then you could take the whole gun apart and you could see what everything else is going gonna look like. But right now I take the adjustment screw out of the reg, and then of course the little ball bearing is going to follow. After that, you're now stuck with, well, how do I get that out? A lot of people are kind of like, well, it's threaded, but I don't have anything that threads into that. Well, if you don't have anything that threads into that, then that's fine, because I like to use, I've got an old Leatherman that I like to use. The tip of the pliers fits fine, grabs onto the inside of the of the spool, and you just turn it a little bit, and out it comes. Then at that point you have a completely hollow, hollow reg housing. Again, it's got oil all throughout it, so something tells me that when I go to look at the inside of this, also being almost dripping with oil, if you can see the oil puddle right there. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely something going on with the reg. You know, the Kyle did tell me that he was having some issues, you know, with it. So, I mean, I obviously know what to start looking for. You know, most of the time, people will ask also, how do you get the piston out of the, you know, out of the bottom of the reg? And you take it, and I mean, I just use, you know, my Leatherman because it's nice, sturdy, solid, you know, surface. And then you just tap on it to get the, you know, to get that out, to get that going. Now you get to a certain point where you should be able to just grab and pull the, you know, pull the inside out. You know, there's a couple of, you know, key components to these regs. One of them is the O-rings that are on the inside here. The shims have to be in proper, you know, proper stack position. If you're not familiar with that, definitely look at your manual. You know, online manuals also same thing. They'll tell you, you know, your proper shim, you know, shim stack. If you're running HP through these guns, I don't recommend it. There are some people that say, oh, well, there's no big difference, you know, between, you know, running, you know, high pressure and then running, you know, low pressure if you do the mod. But the fact of the matter is these were specifically set up by, you know, by Angel to run, you know, low pressure. There's a reason for that, and that's why I like to stick to that. I don't like doing the high pressure mods on these guns. I find that that the parts don't hold up as long like they should. Some people, you know, will argue that, but the fact of the matter is I've worked on, you know, I don't know, 300 plus Angels, and you know, all of the low pressure Angels I've worked on have all, you know, I've told everybody that they should all be run as low pressure. I rarely ever do a high pressure mod, you know, and send it out because you know, I don't trust, you know, that people are aware of, you know, their tank, you know, their tank output pressure. I mean, somebody might tell me, oh well, I think it's 600 and it's really 1,000. You know, I mean, that's excessive for an Angel. In my eyes. But again, now if you look into there, you'll see there's still one little part in there. It's the piston, brass tip piston. That one actually came out really easily. Most of the time it takes, you know, quite a bit of coaxing, but again, like I said, there's a pretty significant amount of oil on the rig, so therefore you might, you know, sometimes it might come out a little easier. A lot of the times, if you can't get your SB, or you can't get your A1 Fly or your arc in this you know, particular you know, instance to chrono properly, meaning it's chronoing high. If it's chronoing high, there's a really good possibility that you are missing that little rubber piece that is on the top of this piston. As soon as that goes away, it doesn't allow this to seal properly. As soon as that little piston goes away, all it is just metal on metal, and you're going to get so much air coming through here, going to here, you know, that it's just not going to be able to seal up properly. It's not going to give you that good buffer, and it's going to allow, you know, a ton more air in. I had an SB a while ago that I purchased. The kid told me, you know, right from the get-go, he said it wasn't chronoing properly. It was chronoing really hot, and I was just like, oh, okay, you know, I took it to the field, you know, I put some, you know, paint over the chrono. I was shooting, you know, between 475 and 525. Now, it didn't break a single ball. I mean, I shot almost half a hopper, you know, at that speed, just because I thought it was incredible that, you know, that these guns, you know, are still capable of shooting that high without breaking paint. So, you know, I went and I took apart the reg, and I found that the little brass piston was missing its rubber bumper on the top, and you know, I swapped it out, put it in, went over the chrono, you know, a couple times, you know, shooting, you know, 285, 300. So now you've gotten to that point. I've got the reg apart. Usually, you know, I skip ahead a little bit. I mean, you know, the taking the reg apart's no big deal. But now I'm going to take the frame off. There's 2 screws in the front of the frame. Now these screws, a lot of people tend to over tighten these, and they strip them right out. If you notice, they're recessed in there. Okay, When you strip one of these out, it becomes extremely difficult for the average Joe to take that screw out of here without damaging this frame. This frame is also, if you notice, it's got a solid rail on it. It's completely different than your A1 frames and all that other, all those other frames. This is a nice frame to have. It's sturdier. This rail right here won't break and chip like, like the A1 Fly frames will. So take care of your, take care of your gun. Again, you want to make sure that they're tight, yeah, so the frame isn't wobbling all over the place. But if you over torque them, to the point where you notice that the screws, now don't hold the hex key, you're going to have to fix that at some point. You're going to have to do something with that, in order to, allow to tighten these back up again. So, I mean, your best bet is not to, is over tighten them, because then, you just get yourself into a whole nother problem. I've done screws, I fix screws on these, and it's not fun. There's no fun at all in that, and having to, get in there and not mess up, the frame. But anyway, the ARC comes with a two-piece trigger system. It's got a retaining plate, which is plastic. Should just drop right out, and it's got the the Fly stick trigger. You'll notice that the two pieces go hand in hand with each other. They sit right down here. If your bearings are stiff, if they're if they're not rolling properly, you should be able to take your trigger. You should be able to hold it, and you should be able to just let it drop, and it should freely spin. If it doesn't, if there's any sort of stickiness or whatever, you can use 3-in-1 oil on them, or if worst case scenario you need these replaced, you can always give me a shout. I do have the bearings available. They were purchasing a lot that I purchased from a Angel Tech business that had a bunch of the odds and ends and stuff like that. I'm gonna put that off to the side, obviously, because that's gonna get cleaned. But actually, one thing I should show you is there's 3 screws in here on this board. There's one right there. There's one on the front of the micro, and then there's one down at the very bottom. Those screws actually thread into the frame themselves. They look like screws, like wood screws, but they actually have really small threads. Don't lose them. They're kind of a pain in the ass to replace. They're very specific, to holding the board in place. The only other thing I wanted to point out was that when you go to tighten up your panels on the outside, especially on the SBs and the ARCs, you want to be careful that you don't over tighten them, because over tightening them can lead to that, which is slight cracking. These are actually in really good shape. At one point I was going to attempt to make new ones of these because it's just plexi and it's been milled down, but you can see it's kind of very, very technical, very tight fitting. If they're even just a slight issue, or if you don't cut them right, it's just really difficult to match these. So again, take care of the grip panels. You don't have to torque the screws right down in order for them to stay. They, believe it or not, they will stay. With just lightly tightening them down and giving them just a little bit more at the very end. You don't have to go all Hulk on them, in order to get them to stay. The next thing is I'm going to take off the Vert ASA adapter, which is going to allow us to get to the front valve pin and plug. This screw is not on tight, which leads me to believe at some point this front seal is probably going to be compressed. A lot of people have issues with the with leaks in the front of the gun, especially with the A1s and the A1 Flies and the SBs and everything else like that. They have an issue with them sealing up properly. One of the biggest problems is this little seal right here gets compressed or it gets dried out. You can see it's kind of like a triangular shape. if you need to take this, or if you find that yours is no good anymore and you can't tighten it down and get it to seal properly, what you want to do is you want to get this replaced, or you can, and I'm only saying this as a last ditch effort, you can use an O-ring that will fill that cavity on the outside. You can use an O-ring as long as it's big enough to fit up against the walls of this, and it's relatively thick. It's got to be, you can see, it's got to be about regular O-ring thickness. Then you can use that in a pinch. Again, you're going to want to use a regular triangular shaped seals. It just makes sense to replace it with stuff that's already been that's normal for this marker. The next step that I'm going to do, there's two actually. I'm going to take off the front valve, magno valve, because I want to see if the magnet is stuck to the front of this. Because like I said before, when I was looking down into the chamber, I wasn't able to see the valve stem. It's kind of bothered me, and I'm just curious at this point. It looks like it's just, there's no magnet on the bottom of that. Maybe it just shifted forward a little bit. Actually now I can see it's just kind of gritty, I guess. So that happens where the where the stem slides forward a little bit. But like I said, it looked, it's not coming out of the valve body that easily, which it should. This stuff should have a little bit of play, but it shouldn't. It should attract to that Allen key, in which it's not. So I'll have to push that out from the back after I get the back torn down. The next step is you're going to want to take the pin. There's a threaded pin down in here. In order to be able to get that, you need to have the right thread, or you need to have an Angel toolkit. Angel toolkits have the L-shaped threaded tools that you need in order to be able to pull that pin out. If you don't have it, it's going to make life a little harder. I have a couple of these just because I'm always working on these guns, but that's it right there. The threaded end goes down into the hole, then you go ahead, you thread it in there, and then you pull the pin out. Pin should just come out. Sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it's stuck in there. If that is the case, then you have to, you might have to, work at it a little bit. You can screw this all the way down in, and then you can continue screwing it, and sometimes that'll break it loose inside that housing. I've seen some where they've literally have trashed one of these trying to get it out. You can put heat to these guns and stuff like that, but the fact is most of these, should be already, they should come apart without any, major, effort. If they've been neglected, it might take a little bit longer. So now that I've gotten to this point right here, I usually just pull out the body pins. There's going to be 3 of them on the bottom, and they hold components in. The one thing I do like to tell people is, if you notice on the ARC and the SB, there's a valve retaining pin cover. If you lose that cover for any reason, you happen to be taking apart your gun, you don't realize that you placed that part, or that part fell on the floor, or whatever, maybe the issue. If you cannot locate that part and you've hence lost it, trust me, that's going to be probably one of the worst days for your gun, because these guns will not go back together and will not function properly without that plate in place. They made it kind of difficult to get these guns to work properly without that plate being there. I've seen it pop up a couple of times on online where people have asked about it and they've questioned it. You know, and say, oh well, you know, I lost that pin. You know, what can I do? And it's like, you can bring your gun to a machinist and you can pay him a lot of money to replace that part if you want. But again, take this part, put it somewhere safe. Don't lose it. It's going to be near impossible. You know, I mean, how many people are parting these guns and that will sell you that part? I mean, I'd sell you that part for like $400. Anyway, now that we've got, you know, the valve is out, the valve, you know, plate, you know, holds, the valve pin, you know, now we've kind of getting to that point where we're going to start taking out internal parts. If you notice, he's left a knob in here for the bolt removal, you know, in which you go ahead and you can pull on that, and that will, you know, allow you to take the bolt out from, you know, the front of the gun. A lot of people, you know, will question, well, it doesn't have a rotor breach. You know, the SBs and the ARCs don't have rotor breaches, so how do I get the bolt out? The bolt comes out the front. It doesn't come out the back. Doesn't come out, you know, anywhere else. It comes out strictly from the front. When you take it out, you'll notice how it's set up. You'll notice that the pin, you know, goes, you know, right into that spot of the bolt. You know, I can tell that this gun's got, you know, has a little bit of play time on it. You know, it's got some wear and stuff like that, which is good. It's good. Shoot your angels, you know. So now like I said, he had the, you know, the little fastener tool on here, you know, right on the bolt. You know, it's probably, I mean, the retaining pin. So he probably likes that, you know, to be able to, if he needs to, if he breaks paint, which, you know, these guns rarely ever do. But if he does, then he can just, you know, pull the bolt out, clean it up if he has to. Now we have the next step, which is taking off the eye cover. It's a 3-piece cover. I'm not really particular to the 3-piece covers, and I'm going to tell you why. They tend to flex a lot. They tend to also not align the eyes as properly as the 1-piece covers do. When Kyle sent this in, he told me also that there was an issue with the eyes. You know, I'm probably going to end up seeing that it's an alignment issue. You know, in which case I may, you know, I may throw a 1-piece eye set, you know, system in this gun. You know, because I think that, like I said, the 3-piece cover just doesn't have the same stiffness. It doesn't hold the detents and the eyes in line properly. You know, it's a personal preference, I guess, but I mean, it is almost kind of proven. I have noticed, you know, that there are, you know, have been more guns that have come in that have had that issue. After you're done, you want to take your, you know, after you pull your eyes out, you want to take these and want to put them somewhere safe, due to the fact that they, you know, are kind of fragile. You know, you don't want to go placing something heavy on them, or, you know, getting them squished or whatever else like that. You know, these eyes have got a couple of dents in them, you know, in the cables, you know, which could, you know, also be, you know, part of his eye problem. I'll find out a little bit later on. So now we've got, you know, essentially the rest of the gun is, you know, it's just now, you know, it can be opened up on either end. A lot of people have asked me, well, how do you get the front plug out? There's really no easy way to be able to get that out, but there is. Again, I like to use my my Leatherman tool. I found that the knife and the amount of leverage that I can use with it, you know, allows me to get the front plugs off of these guns. What I usually do is I usually take the you know, take the blade and I just put it down into the, you know, into the corner. You can see I use this you know, front, you know, pad, and then I just push the front of it up. Now, the one thing that you want to do, and you know, when you get to a certain point, is you want to make sure that you don't nick the O-ring. There's an O-ring in here. If you nick the O-ring, those O-rings are actually, believe it or not, a little bit more difficult to source. Sometimes you'll have to buy an entire kit in order to get the front plug O-ring. You know, I've got some here, but I mean, literally they're hard to find on their own. So the front plug comes out. Again, it's got a little bit of oil, not as much as I was almost expecting, which means most of the oil has probably been contained to the to the regulator. Now we've got you've got the front parts. You got the valve. You got all the way in the back the LPR. Now, most of the time, what I do is, at this point, go ahead and take the back plate off. It's the same Allen key as your frame, so that should be, I mean, like I said, these guns only use a couple different size Allen keys anyway. And then you go ahead and you remove that, and now you're left with the top solenoid hold down set screw, in which you go ahead and put your Allen key in there. Now, this is one other thing that people do a lot. They over tighten that, they squish their solenoid, and they render it completely useless. Solenoids are about $65 if you can find them. I've seen them as high as $100 because people know that they are not readily available unless somebody parted out a gun. Keep this in mind, okay? You start over tightening stuff, you'll damage stuff. These guns are not, they're not tanks. They're not, they're finely machined pieces of aluminum, primarily. And if you notice, the screws are not aluminum. The screws are steel. So you're putting aluminum and steel together, mixing and matching your metals is never a good idea. And that's when you run into problems, because you just go and you crank on these things, and steel will hold its, grasp, in soft aluminum all day long. So again, don't over tighten the solenoid, set down screw. All you have to do is be able to tighten it enough so it doesn't leak. It's very simple, very basic. If you think that you're over tightening it, back it out. I mean, it's very, very easy to do. And I mean, when I first started getting into the A1 platforms, I started to notice a lot of guns not cycling properly. There being issues, and then I realized, well, it's primarily because people have these, the set screws just cranked right down on these things. And, then there's really nothing that you can do. I mean, you can't salvage a solenoid unless you have other parts, to replace that housing. You can't salvage them. They're literally, just at that point, you take them and you throw them in the trash because they're no good. This piece slides forward, or backwards actually. It's one whole piece, the back, the stock holder, and all that jazz. Pretty much it just, that one piece just slides right out. If you need to test your pressures, you're going to need to get a special arc pressure tester. It is it's a piece that looks similar to this. It's yellow. And what it is it doesn't have this solid piece in the back. It's cut out. This piece right here is cut out so you can put your gauge to the back of the LPR, because right now you wouldn't be able to hold down the solenoid if you screwed. Yes, you can put your gauge in the back here, but you wouldn't be able to hold that solenoid down, with all the air going into it in order to sufficiently get a good reading. So, you're going to want to keep that in mind if you're going to be doing a lot of these and you want to get these things fine-tuned and everything like that. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, okay, well, well, that's cool. Now I can just, I can pull out the RAM and I can pull out the LPR. But you can't, because if you start doing all of that before you do this next thing, you can damage, again, your solenoid. You're going to want to take your solenoid out. You've already gotten to that point where you're physically right here. It's right in front of you. It is just begging to come out of the gun. So listen to it. Take it out of the gun. Take it out. Put it off to the side. Treat it like you would the eyes. It's an expensive piece. Piece of this gun. Then you have your valve, or your solenoid gasket. You can check it for tears or any issues like that. Most of the time these things are reusable. This one's got a little bit of grease on it, which I'd wipe up and clean, but it's in really good shape. Also, when you go to put it back, make sure you put it back the way that it came out. If you do decide to flip it or whatnot, you can hinder the flow, the airflow into the solenoid, and the gun won't work properly. Rarely have I ever seen a gasket go in backwards and the gun still works perfectly fine. In fact, it won't. So it'll just kind of save you a little bit of time there. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take out the LPR. There's a plug in the back. It almost looks very similar to a LCD valve, valve or battery chamber plug, which I always found was kind of interesting. They always seem to just keep reusing old tooling and similar product. But now you've got now I've got that, the LPR pretty much to the point where I can remove it. Now, how would I get that? Well, there's a threaded tool that'll allow you to pull out the plunger, but in order to get the whole thing out, I use a wooden spoon. You can use a dowel. You can use a the plastic part of a squeegee. Whatever. Don't use anything metal or something that's abrasive. That's going to scratch the inside of this gun, because you could literally make this body completely useless if you put something in there that scratches or gouges. You can make it so the LPR doesn't seal. It always leaks. And a leaking gun isn't going to shoot as good as a non-leaking gun. So you take the dowel, put it in the front, and then you just gently push it out the back. There's your LPR. There's there's a couple of parts to it. I'll try to split it and separate it a little bit. You've got your dish shaped shims. Then you've got your wafer shims. Then you've got your spacer, and you've got your LPR body. There's a couple of O-rings that are going to want to be checked or replaced. They're your standard O-rings for this, for the Angel line. They're almost interchangeable throughout. But there's that right there. You can go ahead and put that off to the side. I again recommend at least wiping or cleaning down every component. Like I said, with this one, I'm going to end up washing a lot of the little odds and ends on it, because there's just paint all throughout. Now, in order to get the ram out the back, what I usually do is usually take a Allen key, put it into the slot right here, and then just push it out. It pushes the ram out the back. All the SBs and all the ARCs have the STR rams in them. They're a higher quality ram, I believe. I've yet to see one of these bad. I have heard that a couple of people have said that that they've gone bad, in which they've sent them in and had them rebuilt. But these are still available online. For the SB and the ARC platform. They're still available. You can still purchase them on pbsports.com. Jay's a buddy of mine. We've done a good amount of dealing with. I like to give him a call every now and again. Just to pick up some parts and see what the levels of parts availability are. Angel went under years ago, and with that became limited availability on certain parts. Again, Jay has got a significant stock of Angel parts for the A1 platform and whatnot. Just give them a shout if you need particular parts that might be a little harder to come by. I carry quite a few parts here in-house, like I said, from a previous purchase, but I don't have them all. Again, the STR RAM right there. And now the only other thing I have left in the body is the valve assembly. The valve assembly comes out the front. Don't try to force it out the back. It won't come out the back. Again, you just go gently, push it forward, and then there you have it. Now this one particular model has the D-Light stem, which is really roughed up. It's got a lot of wear down in the back here. I don't know if you can see that, but there's actually a physical ridge about halfway in, and this is the reason why I could not see this this, protruding. It should protrude a little bit right there out of the out of the back of the valve. When I was looking in the gun, it was exactly like that, and that's why I thought the magnet may have come off, and at that point it would allow this valve stem to just move freely wherever it wanted to. Unfortunately, this may need to be replaced if I can't get it to function properly. It also has a little bit of a little bit of a bend to it, which means at some point that I think this probably bound up inside the valve. I have always questioned Angel's use of plastics and metals together. There are some companies that do it, and they a lot of companies do it. The thing is there's a point where these are touted as upgrades and as almost cures for all of the other issues and problems that these guns may have. There are pro D-light stem people that absolutely swear by them. I personally am not a real big fan of them. Not only do you have to shoot them a lot in order to get them to stop leaking when you first get them as brand new, which to me that would really just annoy me, to be told, hey, by the way, you have to shoot this gun X amount of times before the valve will stop leaking. But then you have all these all these wear issues and stuff like that. Whereas with a metal one, I mean, at some point, yes, something is going to give, but it just seems they just seem to last longer. Again, that's up to your own. That's my own personal view on that. Now we pretty much we're at the end. There it is. If you decide that you want to take off the feed neck, it's very basic. It's very simple. You just go ahead and you unscrew this lever. It's a two-piece deal. Actually, 3-piece, 4-piece, if you count the pin that holds the threaded section onto the hinge. But there's that right there, and then you just kind of spread that just a little bit. That'll come off. It's separated. You can see right there. That'll come off, and there's that. That's about as complete of a teardown as I can get. These rails come off, which I will be taking them off because there's all kinds of stuff on the inside of them. I'm gonna guess it just when you're stuck in a bunker and you're getting sprayed on, you're gonna get a lot of stuff just here and there. But again, there it is. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. That's how you tear down your Angel Arc.